Alright, you guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Matt, and most of my videos are mental health related. This one's going to be a little bit different. I've wanted to do this video for a long time, and I've basically been trying to film it for the last week or so, but I had so many technical issues with the video not playing properly when I'd go back to watch it. So doing it on a new computer, all of a sudden it's great, so here we are. So, as you can see, we have beautiful London behind me here, double-decker buses and all that, really cool. So, what is today's video going to be about, you say? Well, basically, it's going to be about coming out and some tips and tricks for that, as if there's really a trick, I know. And then we're also going to discuss some questions and kind of how you can answer some questions that are commonly asked, and we can see kind of how you should answer them. So, here we go. Yes, I reused the same cool background as before because it's pretty. And, well, looks kind of gay. Couldn't think of a better one to use for this video, so here we go. So first we're going to discuss some of the questions that you're probably going to get asked here and there anyway. This one I can almost guarantee you'll get asked when you come out. How long have you known? Usually it's the very first thing you get hit with right out of the gate. Obviously the answers vary for every person. So this one there's really not going to be any advice on because just give your answer and move on. Unlike some other questions we're going to discuss, this one's pretty straightforward. So, for me personally, I've known basically since I was about 9 or 10 years old, so about 5th grade, maybe going into 6th grade. I kind of knew that I looked at guys differently. I was more attracted to them physically. So, that's how I kind of say it. So, obviously, there's people that say they've known since they were like 6 or 7 or 8. I mean, sure, I guess it's possible. I mean, why not? And of course, there's people later on in life who figure out what their preference is. So, this one's pretty straightforward, but I can basically guarantee you that somebody's going to ask you this most of the time, especially initially when you first come out. And the second question is this idea of it being maybe a phase or just in general, well, how do you know you're gay? Right? And you might think that that's a fair question or something that's, understandable to ask. But really, when you break it down, it's kind of a silly question, right? So first of all, in addressing the fact, is it a phase? I guess technically, by definition, it's a phase. If you want to say the phase started at age 9 or so, whatever age it is for you that you realize you're gay or bi or trans, whatever it is, and basically it's going to last until the day you die, however long that is, basically it is a phase. It's basically a phase that starts and basically never ends. So, kind of. And of course, in terms of how do you even know, I mean, you can try to come up with some witty explanation, but honestly, in my experience, I've literally just said, well, how do you know you're straight? Reverse psychology is a powerful thing, my friends, because it gets you out of just about anything. Because people for some reason, people just expect that gay people function and work differently in terms of their minds and their relationships and all of these things are so different from straight people. Just everyday relationships are just some sort of thing like we're deciding and how do we really know that we're gay? Well, first of all, I've had girlfriends in the past and something always felt kind of off about it, I wouldn't say that I was faking the relationship or that I was doing the relationship as an appearance thing and keeping up an appearance. I was discovering myself, for sure, through 7th and 8th grade. But I literally haven't dated a girl since 8th grade. So, That's one way you can know if you have past experience dating other people that are not your preference. Maybe you didn't realize it, or you were starting to realize it because of that experience. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That's very good to learn from experience. Experience is a very good motivator, a good tool when it comes to learning a lot of things in life. But yeah, how do you know? I mean, it's the same way you know you're straight or you know you're bi, whatever it is. It's the same logic. And in a similar way, hopefully you don't get asked this one. This one drives me up a wall. Nobody's really asked me this or ever like had this idea that it is a choice. But yeah, there are some people who actually believe this shit. Believe it or not. First of all, if you honestly think that your kid is choosing to be gay, or your friend or whoever it is, it's often with parents, though, and younger kids. Um, you know, for someone who preaches a lot about acceptance and all these different religions and accepting people and treating people the way you want to be treated and all these great things, why are so many religious people the first people that are the ones who throw their kid out of the house for being gay? Or just other words, disown them or talk negative things about them? It's kind of odd, isn't it? You accept everyone except for your own family because you have an idea in your head that they're choosing to be this way. Choosing to be this way. Nobody's choosing to be this way, I assure you. Now, if you have someone in your life who believes this ridiculous fantasy that this is something you're choosing to be or do or whatever they perceptualize it as, well, obviously, much like we did with the last question of kind of, how do you know you're gay? Well, how do you know that you're not gay? In the same way, you could easily challenge this by saying, when did you choose to be straight? When did you choose, literally, not to be gay? Or bi, or trans, whatever. Nobody ever has an answer for that, right? Again, reverse psychology can be very, very useful when you're dealing with these sorts of situations. So, if you need even more reasons, like let's say the person is not buying that logic, they don't want to listen to logic, they don't want to hear logic, because that's a lot of people too. They have one belief in their head, whether it's true or false, right or wrong, whatever it may be. People don't like to hear a lot of facts and statistics, real life reasons. But if you need some, we can certainly give you some. I'm going to move out of the way a bit. Let's see. Risking losing family and friends. Right off the bat, easily, that's the number one reason that people refuse to come out or are afraid to come out. Fear of abandonment or rejection or just being treated differently and changing the dynamics of their existing relationships with their friends or family, whoever it may be. That's the biggest reason, obviously. And realistically, even for coming out with mental illness, to kind of tie this into some of my other videos and my other experiences, that's really the same exact way that coming out with mental illness works. All of this is the same general process. You have to accept it in yourself, and then you have to find ways to relay it to people. It's the same process, honestly. So it's kind of funny when you think about the fact that I've actually had to do a lot of coming out as gay and as mentally ill. And, because so much of it is the same process, that actually really helps, because when I got used to coming out as gay, by the time I had to start telling people about my mental illness and my mental problems, it wasn't such a big deal to me anymore. I could at least kind of fumble my way through a little bit better, a little bit easier. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Very similar. It is basically the same process. You'll get very similar results. So, yes, back to this list though. Okay, risking losing family and friends, that's one thing. How about to be verbally and physically assaulted? Happens every fucking day, people. It does. And how about being a target for bullies, yes. People can discriminate against you for employment and all sorts of other things. And ultimately, I like this one too, to hide who you really are. That's what you're doing. That's what being in the closet is. You're hiding a part of you that, again, is not a choice. It's not a decision you make. It's not a bad parenting move. You know, I honestly do wonder, though, if that is why a lot of parents believe it's a choice, other than the religious end of things, which we're not even going to get into, of course. But I always wonder if they kind of have this idea that they screwed up somehow. They screwed up at parenting. They did something horribly wrong, and they made you turn out the way you did. I wonder if they blame themselves, and I wonder if that's why they actually think it's a choice. Not sure. If you have any insight on that, please comment down below, because I'm actually really curious now that I said that. But either way, it is not a choice. Nobody chooses to have any of these things, to deal with these things. And believe me, we deal with these things every day. This is a reality. There are kids like Tyler Clementi and Matthew Shepard in the last 20 years, two of the biggest hate crime examples for gay youth ever. That totally changed the game of how we deal with these things, how schools approach these topics, all of it. And I really do recommend you look up their stories. I'm not going to go into it because they will be here for 10 more minutes talking about them specifically. But two very, both suicides. Well, one was a suicide, one was murder. In the last 20 years, almost as long as I've been alive, both of these things happened. And these are just two big examples that most people have definitely heard of. But this happens every day across the world. There are parts of the world where being gay will literally get you killed. Like the Middle East, for example. You want to be killed because somebody thinks that you are choosing to be this way? Fuck that. That's all I can say about that. Not a choice. The way you're wired, it's not a parenting thing, it's not a life issue, it is the way you are. And the sooner you and the rest of the world understands that idea, the better off and the easier this whole process will be. So, that's all I got to say about that. Alright, so on to some more happier news. Let's go over some tips. These ones are pretty basic, they're pretty self-explanatory, pretty obvious. But there's still very good points to make, and that's why I'm going to bring them up here. We're going to do 3 of them. And so the first one is going to be come out when you are ready. When you are ready, you will know when you're ready, first of all. That's something that I think a lot of people always have a hard time with. They say, well, what if I'm never ready? What if I never feel like I'm going to be able to tell someone? Or accept it myself, even. Because honestly, like I said earlier, I think you have to accept it yourself first. Whether it's mental illness, whether it's your sexuality or your gender or changing religions or anything you do that's against what other people expect you to do or expect you to be like. You have to accept it in yourself, how you are, who you are, and that most of it is not really a choice. And the stuff that is a choice is stuff that you can obviously change a lot easier. But acceptance is the first step. And so you'll know when you're ready, But when you know in yourself that you can talk about being gay, you can say, I'm gay, if somebody asks you, those are pretty good indicators that you are far on the way to acceptance for yourself personally. So, yes, you'll know when you're ready. And then, of course, the next thing would be, well, who am I going to tell? Obviously, it's going to be a friend or family member who you care about and who presumably cares about you enough that you feel like you are going to tell them this piece of information about yourself. And that's all you're doing. You're sharing a part of your story, a part of your life, a part of your experience about who you are with someone that you know and care and trust. You're not advertising to strangers, although I'm sure you could technically do that, and we'll cover that in a second, I guess. But, ultimately, you'll know when you're ready, and, So the next step, obviously, once you figure out who you're going to tell and you determine that you are ready to tell your story, your experience, obviously the next thing would be, well, how am I going to tell someone? Now, this is where knowing the person that you plan on telling anyway, knowing them is going to be very helpful because you know their personality, you know kind of their general attitude, presumably, about LGBT issues or marriage or whatever it may be. You must have some sort of, heard some sort of comment or statement that the person has made. You should have some sense of how they feel in general about these sorts of ideas. And you can use that to your advantage because believe me, that obviously is very powerful to know, generally speaking, how somebody might react, which will be the next topic. But for now, there's so many ways to communicate on this earth with other people, right? You don't have to just talk face to face, although there are a lot of people who prefer that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's very, very good if you're able to actually do that for yourself, because honestly, I can't. At least I couldn't, not to actual people. I couldn't really sit down and I need to have this conversation. I need to tell you something serious, I don't think I've ever really directly done it in person per se. But that's not the only way to do it. And that's very important to remember as well. You could send a text message. You could call somebody. You can FaceTime or Skype somebody. You can write them a letter. Either typed or handwritten. Doesn't matter. You could smoke signal it if you were feeling adventurous, or Morse code, or whatever you want to do. The point is you have options, and you're not tied to any specific option. You can always change your mind. You can always try something else if something doesn't really turn out the way you want to say it or the way you want to do it. You can always change your approach. And again, that's where knowing the person and knowing their personality and kind of knowing these things is really going to be most beneficial to you. And there's so many ways to pick, and really every person, it might be the same way, or it could be totally different ways depending on who you're going to tell. And that's totally normal as well. You're not stuck to a way, if you tell your mom face to face, it's not like you have to tell your dad face to face, even if you live together or anything like that. Every person's going to have a different way that you're going to tell them. And so that's important to remember as well. You're not locking into any specific method once you pick one. The beauty is you have so many options. Feel free to explore them. It's really helpful. I sent a lot of text messages, but I also wrote down a bunch of things I wanted to say. And that was very helpful for me. Your results will vary. All right, and the final tip, guys, for kind of this coming out situation is to be prepared for both good and, I don't want to say bad reactions. I have bad reactions, but less positive reactions, right? Less positive reactions. Because it's not really anyone's place to say that they were bad reactions, because that's somebody's opinion, that's somebody's projecting their opinion in an emotional way, in a physical way, demonstrating how they feel. So I'm not going to say it's bad or good per se, but a positive and a less than positive, less than ideal situation, however you want to phrase it. But that's what I'm going for. Don't set yourself up to think the worst, that everybody's just going to hate you or they're going to disown you. I know that happens to a whatever percent of people, and that is incredibly unfortunate. And that's a damn shame, honestly, that people can be so narrow-minded that they're going to just kick you out of the house for liking guys or for being attracted to whatever you are attracted to. Again, I would have to think a lot of that comes from them thinking it's a choice or thinking it's just some stupid decision you're making, and to them, a bad decision. We all know that that's not true. We already covered that. So regardless of why they might have a bad reaction, it's important not to go in guns blazing that this is going to be like the worst thing you could ever tell somebody. You know, at the same time, though, you don't want to be so confident and feel like no one could ever say anything negative about it or have any sort of negative reaction to it. Because we know the world doesn't work that way. So it's important to maintain a balance. Like I said in the last slide, you know the person best. You know their personality. You presumably, in most cases, I would think, you would have some sort of awareness of how they feel about general LGBT topics or issues. You'll have some sort of stance on where they stand. If they run around screaming that it's immoral, that it's a sin, this and that, then you know there's a better chance that you're going to hear some negative things. And it might be the sort of scenario where they might say, I don't really approve of it, but it's your life and that's your decision. If they honestly say something like that to you and they do say like, oh, it's your decision, but if you're happy, then fine. Like, I still love you and all of that. That might be the best response you're going to get, at least initially. And that's okay. You know, that's better than you hiding yourself, a big part of yourself. Not the only part of yourself, not the most important part of yourself, but a big part of yourself. You know, I don't want to oversell your sexuality as being the most important or dominant quality of your personality or of who you are. There's so much more to me than being gay. It's just one facet of my life. It's one part of who I am. It's not an end-all be-all. It's not a final determination of anything. It simply says I'm going to go on a date with a guy and not a girl. That's it. That's all it is. You know? And if anyone gets really hung up on this, just remember that. That is essentially what you're communicating. You know? You're communicating that this is going to just say, this is who I'm attracted to. This is who I want to go on a date with. This is who I want to marry or have children with down the line, whatever it may be. This is all you're communicating. Nothing more, nothing less. This is who I'm attracted to. I felt this way for a long time, presumably. And I wanted to tell you. Because I trust you, because I care about you, and I feel like you care about me in the same way. And I don't want it to be a secret anymore. I want to be honest, I want to be upfront, and I want to be real about who I am to the whole world. That's just a little impromptu way you could kind of bring up the subject. You know, but you're gonna find a way that works best for you, and you're gonna accept yourself for who you are, however you are. That's it. And you know, you're brave for coming out and just making this determination, this decision to come out. Because while being gay or bi or trans, anything else is not a decision, right? The decision to come out is a decision, and more importantly, it's your decision. You don't have to come out to anyone, realistically. And in parts of the world where it is very unwise to do so, for fear of your life, again, it's incredibly unfortunate that those things have to happen in this world today. But if it's a matter of life and death, and your sexuality has to be kept a secret to protect your life or the life of your family or friends, then there's really not much you can do, unfortunately, in that situation. But you're still brave, you're still a strong person, and no matter what your situation is, you can overcome it. No matter what bad reaction you get, that doesn't change who you are. That doesn't make you less of a person. Even if you get some negative reception, people's minds will open up. And first opinions are not always the final opinions. They're very often not the final opinion. So someone's first reaction could be a lot of shock and a lot of just confusion. hence why they'll probably start asking you, how do you know? How long have you felt this way? Whatever it may be. But people will get over it. And if they don't, that's their loss, because you're a fabulous person for being who you are and being able to tell people who you are, because I know it's not easy. But either way, I hope these videos are helpful to you guys, and I hope you learned some ways to think about some of these questions and topics that you might get asked, or had to go through yourself. And if you liked the video, definitely give it a thumbs up. That's really cool. And if you want to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other amazingly bizarre videos, like green screen videos like this one, hit the notification bell. You won't miss them. Until the next video, take care. Bye.